Hello and good evening, friends, and welcome to this very special edition of Strictly Sports. This is our 2020 Strictly Sports Year in Review special. I am your host, Anthony Florio. I am joined, as always, by good old MF Michael Fletcher, as well as Michael Bullock. And we're going to be doing this show with very heavy hearts this evening, even though the reason being so is not from the world of sports. It actually came from our other world that we cover, which is the world of professional wrestling, with the sudden and tragic passing of Mr. Brody Lee, aka Luke Harper, for all the WWE fans out there. And this Wednesday night, on Wednesday Night Mayhem, the three of us will pay our respects to Mr. Brody Lee and share our favorite moments and memories of him. It's going to be very hard to do this show this evening, but we're going to do the best we can. So this Wednesday night on Mayhem, as we start the show, we will start off that show by paying our respects to Mr. Brody Lee, and I know MF will be getting ready for that since Wednesday night Mayhem. So yeah, very hard, but we're going to do our best. So this show and tomorrow night's show, that's definitely going to be in his memory. So, but anywho, let's dive on in to what has been. Let's not kid ourselves. This has been the worst year in history for a lot of reasons, but the main reason, obviously of unfortunately something we're still dealing with to this day, and that is the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19, and it put a damper on a lot of things in the world of sports. And unfortunately, for the first time since I believe it was in 1939, I think it was, we did not have an NCAA tournament this year on the men's side or in the women's side. We didn't even have conference tournaments. And you can only imagine how hard it was for us to go through all that. But we did have the other sports, though. But those didn't come until months later. I mean, this crazy year started back in January the 13th of this year, at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana, when the number one team in the land at the time, the LSU Tigers, squared off against the number 3 team, the Clemson Tigers, for the college football playoff national championship. And LSU went on to win that game by a score of 42-25, led by Joe Burrow, who won the Heisman Trophy. He threw for 463 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions in that game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's now with the Kansas City Chiefs, he ran for 110 yards. Jamar Chase was the big star on the receiving side. He had 221 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings now. He went over 100 yards, 106 yards. Thaddeus Moss, the son of Randy Moss, 2 touchdowns receiving for him. Terrace Marshall Jr. had 1. That was an offensive effort. I mean, no defense, although the defense did record 2 sacks, but that's really all they needed to do. And it was just a very dominant performance by LSU, and that's really where everything. The year started off with promise. The first little bit, but then one of the first big turning points of this year came just about 2 weeks later, when the sports world lost one of the greatest NBA players of all time in Kobe Bryant, who tragically passed away in a plane crash along with his daughter Gianna on 26th of this year, which was the same day. Ironically, it was the same day as the WWE Royal Rumble pay-per-view event. It was hard to do that show that night, but we still went on. We did it as we always did, and you always remember where you were when stuff like that happened. And I remember that very day, Michael Bullock, he called me up in the afternoon on that day, and he told me the news, and I was like, what? I'm like, are you sure this isn't fake news? He's like, no, this is not fake news. This is legit. I'm like, oh my God. And then, we looked into it, and then there it was. Slowly but surely, it was confirmed. NBA TV, ESPN, all the sources, and it was true. And then a few days later, MF and I, you remember, we did we dedicated an hour abroad to pay tribute to Kobe Bryant, and it was one of our highest rated shows of the year over on MF's channel, Braves Fan 95, and that's really where everything. It's really where things started to change, and when Kobe passed. But more on that in a moment. A week later, we then had Super Bowl 54. We saw it was the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers against the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida on February 2nd. The three of us, all three of us here, we were originally scheduled to get together over at Michael Bullock's house, but due to circumstances beyond control, we had to move our get together to a local sports bar pub here in our neck of the woods called the Dublin Rose. And I'll tell you what, that was one of the wildest and craziest nights we ever had. And at the end of that day, as we all remember, it was the Kansas City Chiefs who snapped a 50-year drought with that Super Bowl win. And it was of course, who was it? It was, of course, Patrick Mahomes who led the way. And he had 286 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns, but he threw 2 interceptions. And he also had a rushing touchdown in that game as well. Damian Williams over 100 yards rushing in the win. Tyreek Hill over 100 yards receiving. Travis Kelce and Damian Williams with touchdowns there. Defense recorded a sack, but they did record 2 interceptions, 2 very critical interceptions. Chiefs, do you remember the Chiefs were down 20-10 going into the fourth quarter of that game, and then they pulled it out of the water there. And we all agreed it was the most remarkable Super Bowl run that we had ever seen. They came back from 24 down to beat the Houston Texans in the divisional round. And then in the AFC Championship game, they came back from 10 down to beat the Tennessee Titans. And then, of course, in the Super Bowl, coming back from 10 down in the fourth quarter, no less, to defeat the 49ers and win their first Super Bowl title in 50 years. And, it was a very special night. And, we ran into some wild and crazy Chief fans down there at the Dublin Rose. And you can only imagine how fired up and how pumped up they were about that win. And, yes, and of course, we have some friends in our circle that are diehard Kansas City Chiefs fans. Of course, Dee and Kevin Woodson, first and foremost, and another one of our dear friends, Rob Parsons, is a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, and that was a special moment for them, and it was so cool for us to be together, and we'll wait and see. Hopefully, COVID doesn't put the kibosh on any Super Bowl plans we might have going into the upcoming Super Bowl 55, when we get to that. But that was definitely a great moment to see the Chiefs win for the first time in 50 years in the 100th season of the NFL, no less. So that was great. And then, of course, March, that's where everything happened. That's when the you-know-what hit the fan, as they say. And that's when COVID really took control, and that's when COVID exploded, and then our world was never the same after that. It was not. And it marked the first time since 1939 that we did not have an NCAA tournament. And that's one of our most favorite times of the year. We do a bracket manager group that I put together over on CBSSports.com, Bracket Manager. Something we always look forward to doing, and just to see who would get the bragging rights and all that. But unfortunately, we didn't get to enjoy that. We didn't even get to enjoy any conference tournaments either. Some briefly got started, but then COVID, started hitting, and then that was the end of that, unfortunately. And it marked the first time in over 80 years or so that we did not get to enjoy the excitement and the madness of March Madness in the NCAA tournament. Not just the men's side, the women's side got kiboshed as well. And also at that time, the start of the Major League Baseball season was pushed back many of times before that season finally got underway. It was delayed for 4 months. And then it was finally started on Thursday, July the 23rd. The very first game was the then World Series champion Washington Nationals getting their rings, squaring off against my New York Yankees, and the Yankees put a kibosh on that homecoming, as we all remember. But that's what happened. 4 months, they got delayed. The NHL and NBA seasons, they were well underway at that point, but they got kiboshed, postponed, and we had to wait just as long for that season, for those seasons to get restarted. They canceled out the rest of the regular season in the NHL, and then it was finally on the 1st of August that a 24-team tournament to determine the 2020 Stanley Cup champion. And on behalf of myself and MF, who, we are, the top voices of the NHL, I mean, it was an absolute blessing to be a part of that. I mean, that's when we finally got to get back going again after COVID had, kiboshed so many things and taken so much from us. And that was a special moment for us to be a part of something that awesome, that cool, in 2 bubbles. Toronto, the Scotiabank Arena, formerly the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, they housed the 12 teams from the Eastern Conference. And then the Rogers Arena in Edmonton, which hosted the 12 teams from the Western Conference. And the Eastern Conference playoffs were in Toronto. The Western Conference playoffs and both conference finals and the Stanley Cup finals were in Edmonton. And when all was said and done, after almost 2 months, just a little north of 2 months, on September the 28th, we finally crowned a Stanley Cup champion, and that team ended up being the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay Lightning won their first Stanley Cup in 16 years, winning in 6 games over the Dallas Stars, led by Conn Smythe Trophy winner Victor Hedman. And, it was a great moment to see it, even though it was 3+ months after it would usually be. But big moment for Tampa Bay. Congratulations to them winning their first cup in 16 years, their second overall. And the NBA was affected. You remember the NBA? They got affected. And they started about 2 weeks after the NHL got started. And they were in a bubble themselves at the ESPN Wide World of Sports Complex in Orlando, Florida. And I don't think they did it as I don't think it was the 24 teams like the NHL had. It was their traditional format, and that started about a couple of weeks after the NHL got started. And for the lower seeds, for the 8 seeds, they actually did do a few more regular season games. They actually picked up, but they didn't do the full 82. They stopped, I believe, at 72 or 70 or something like that. And then finally on October the 11th, after all was said and done, we had crowned an NBA champion. And that NBA champion was the Los Angeles Lakers for the 17th time in franchise history, tying themselves with the Boston Celtics for the most all time. We never thought anybody would ever do that, but they did it. And they put away a very game Miami Heat team in 6 games. And LeBron James, what can you say? Along with Anthony Davis, that Laker team, so fun to watch. And they picked up right where they left off at the start of this new NBA season on Christmas night. So that's all there is to say on that. And then the world of baseball, Major League Baseball. As you know, they started on July 23rd with a very abbreviated 60-game season. And the regular season, it was held within the confines of the home ballparks, with the exception of the Toronto Blue Jays, because of the restrictions in Canada. They were not allowed to play their home games at their arena, their stadium, the Rogers Center, formerly the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. They moved to a minor league baseball stadium in Buffalo, New York, and we had a very special postseason in the world of Major League Baseball. 8 teams in the American and National Leagues, and they did. They started with best of 3 wild card series, and then they moved on to the traditional best of 5 division series, and then best of 7 league championship series, and then of course the World Series. The wild card games were at the home sites of the higher seeded teams, but then the divisional series, we had the New York Yankee Tampa Bay Ray division series was held within the confines of Petco Park in San Diego. MF's team, the Atlanta Braves, they squared off in their division series. I believe it was the Miami Marlins, and that was at Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas. And then the other AL division series, which I got to look back at it, but bubble was the word when it comes to everything. And all right, I have it right here. It was oh yes, okay. So what had happened here was it was the Houston Astros and the Oakland A's, and that series was held within the confines of Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Dodgers against the San Diego Padres. That was held at the confines of the new Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas. Tampa Bay Rays and Houston Astros advanced. They met in the league championship series, and then the Dodgers and MF's Braves met in the NLCS. Rays and Dodgers winners there. And then when all was said and done, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who had the best record in all of baseball, 43-17, they went on to win the World Series, their first World Series title in 32 years. 1988, the last time they had won it. They finally got over the hump. They beat the Rays in 6 games in Arlington at Globe Life Field, and in a special season, to say the very least, for the LA Dodgers and football season. The college football season, it was it started very rough for the first couple of weeks, and then it was right around September the 5th or 12th, I believe, when the college football season finally got underway. A lot of games got postponed because of COVID, and a lot of games got affected, and the Army-Navy game played at West Point, a few weeks ago, on a very foggy day, which I know MF will never forget. Him and Eric Carrier, who called that game and did so brilliantly, like they always do, and of course, the championship games got pushed back to a week ago, and of course, the bowl season now underway, and everything looks to be on track. And with the exception of the Rose Bowl game will not be at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. It's going to be held at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And we will have more on that on Tuesday night when we bring you another special edition of Strictly Sports, as we are going to bring you a special edition of our college football show, which will be from which we will recap we will preview rather the New Year's 6 bowl games, and including the college football playoffs. So, by the way, we cannot wait to bring you that on Tuesday night. And And of course, the NFL season started on time on September the 10th. The Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Limited fans in Arrowhead. Some stadiums have limited fans. Other stadiums, unfortunately, no fans whatsoever. And a lot of games did get moved around, but fortunately, they all got played. So everything seems to be on track, even though the Cleveland Browns have a very difficult situation on their hands tomorrow. But the year in sports in a nutshell, I mean, this is a year we've never seen before, and we hope to never see again, honestly. And we're hopeful that this time next year, we'll be back to normal. Hopefully this nightmare will be over. We'll have fans back in the stands, because you can't have sports without fans. You can't. Something about having fans there just gives you that added adrenaline, and it just pumps you up even more. But it's been a year unlike any other, and we hope we never see a year like this ever again. And we hope and pray to our Lord that this time next year everything will be back to normal. Fans will be back in the stands, and we can finally get back to normal. So, been a crazy year, but at least everything has been done. And congratulations to all our champions this year. College football playoff national champion, LSU Tigers. Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Stanley Cup champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. NBA champion, Los Angeles Lakers. And World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. So, it's been a wild and crazy year, which we'll never forget. So, good old MF Michael Fletcher, come on in. You've heard everything, all the highlights and unfortunate lowlights of what has been the worst year of all time with COVID and all the protests and riots and everything else. But you heard everything I had to say. What says you about everything this crazy year?
Yes, this has been one for the record books. I mean, we've been through a lot of crazy stuff in our history, but I don't think we've never had anything like this. Started it off, everything was normal, everything was fine. We had the NFL playoffs, everything else, and everything was going well. Like you said, start out with the NCAA, the college football playoff that had LSU win the national championship, and it was fine. It was good. Everything was fine. Then, like you said, the tragedy and the death of Kobe Bryant. Um, that one hit home. That hurt me so bad. Anthony knows it. I think a lot of people know that I'm very close to the NBA. Kobe was one of my favorite players. To hear that news really, really, really broke my heart. I mean, I was devastated beyond belief with that news. Not only the day of the Royal Rumble, but it was also the day of the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl was happening, so a lot of the NFL players got a chance to voice their sadness and their despair and what Kobe meant to them. He was a global phenomenon. Not only was he just a great basketball player, but he was an icon for sports around the world. Um, he really impacted the game in such a way that he was legendary. Of course, his daughter Gianna, and also don't forget the other people who were affected in the tragedy. Three of the girls who were going to be future probably WNBA superstars, to say the very least. And it was such a tragedy that you can't fathom. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers still to this day and forever to the families that got affected by that tragedy. And yeah, it did put a little bit of a damper on that week and leading into the Super Bowl. It was a tough week for all of us, but we did handle it. We played it, and we did our best to try to stay as professional as we could. And I thought we did a great job handling that situation. So yeah, I thought, like I said, it was a tragedy. It was a heartbreaker. It was everything that you could say, and yeah, and then going from that to the Super Bowl with Kansas City winning it all, we're feeling pretty good. Then obviously when COVID actually did hit, it affected the conference tournaments. I was about to cover the ACC. Anthony was about to cover the Big East tournament, and basically everything stopped. Everything got halted, and there was uncertainty about if anything was going to happen. Started with the NBA. As everybody knows, it was Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz that was the first athlete in the world to test positive for COVID-19. And it literally killed the season as we knew it. The season got halted at that moment, and from there, it was just unbelievable how this played and everything that went down. And it was unbelievable. Obviously, the season stopped, everything got halted, and again, the next thing we were looking and hoping for was for a prayer for anything. Fortunately, in the summer, we got everything back. The NHL was the first to make, the baseball was the first to make the move with the 60-game regular season, which we are very grateful for. Then the NHL came back, the NBA came back, and then there was a time where for all of us, everything was great because at that point, we literally had 3 sports going on at the exact same time in the summer, which normally in any other year, we only would have just Major League Baseball. So for us to get the NFL, to get the NBA, the NHL, that normally ends around June, play into July, to play into August, that's unbelievable. And that was a blessing for all of us, you know, to get the sports back, to get some kind of normalcy where normally normalcy is something that we kind of, you know, pride ourselves in, has a lot of this and that and whatever you want to say. And at the end of the day, it's just, well, it's there. There's really nothing more to add. But we did get something special. It was amazing. It was awesome. We were proud. We were happy. We got it back. Everything was working. And, you know, yeah, the only downside is we didn't have full stadium of fans. You know, there was limited fans in some cities, you know, maybe 10, 20,000 in certain stadiums, maybe none at all. It kind of depended on where you are, where you were from, and what happens next. Obviously, my thoughts and prayers are with everybody who's been affected with this COVID. But the thing was, we got sports. Yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the largest tournament in the history of the NHL with 24 teams in it. And for them to win the Stanley Cup, the hardest, you know what? Normally the toughest road is to win the Stanley Cup. And it's the hardest and the toughest to win. But for you to win the Stanley Cup under those circumstances, with everything that was riding on the line, it was unbelievable. It was amazing. It was incredible. Congratulations to Tampa. Then about, I want to say a few weeks later, it was about a couple of months. I think it was like a month later, or maybe a couple of weeks later. Behind that, it was in September with the Los Angeles Lakers winning their NBA championship, having that incredible season, to say the very least. And it was unbelievable. So there was really nothing more to add. And then right after that, then you have, you had the fact that it was, you had the fact that it was the LA Dodgers winning the World Series. So it was unbelievable what it was. It was a great road. It was a great journey. It was a great everything. There's really nothing more to add. Anthony, it was an incredible season, one for the ages. And Michael Bullock, I come into you to give your thoughts about 2020. This was, without a doubt, the wildest year we've ever had.
Yeah, this was definitely the wildest year when it comes to sports in 2020. And like you said, it started off really well with with LSU winning the national championship. I mean, with the run by Joe Burrow, and then of course that run by the Kansas City Chiefs to their Super Bowl with the obviously the comebacks in the divisional round against the Texans and the title game against the Tennessee Titans, and then the um, comeback in the Super Bowl to win just their second Super Bowl title in franchise history and first in over 50 years. Of course, led by Patrick Mahomes with the Super Bowl MVP. So, yeah, and then everything really got affected when we got to March. Obviously, starting off obviously in January, obviously with the Kobe Bryant tragedy. I mean, when I heard about it, I first was like, this has got to be fake news. I mean, I can't even fathom it. And then I kept doing some research, and unfortunately, it was true. Kobe Bryant killed in a plane crash along with his daughter and other passengers. And yeah, and then like I said, when we really got to March, that's when, like Anthony said, the you know what hit the fan when this COVID-19 pandemic really kicked in, and it really affected the sports world. I mean, like you said, Rudy Gobert was the first athlete to test positive for COVID, and then that's when Adam Silver decided to suspend the season indefinitely, and then the NHL followed, and then Major League Baseball this to delay the start of the season. And as the months went by, we kept wondering and wondering. I mean, would we get sports back? And then we saw that first glimmer of hope that in late July, Major League Baseball was the first pro sports team to come back with a 60-game season. And I think for all of us guys, that was a blessing for us, know that we were actually going to have a season. And you know what? A 60-game season is better than no season, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and then of course you had the NHL return, and then you had the NBA return. Of course, the NHL just went right into the Stanley Cup playoffs with the unprecedented 24-team Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, starting with the qualifiers and the round robin, and then eventually, when it was all said and done, it was the Tampa Bay Lightning who hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup. And then, of course, the NBA, they had their restart and then went right into their normal playoff routine. And the Los Angeles Lakers were the ones to come out with their 17th world title. I mean, that great run by that tandem of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but against a really game Miami Heat team. I mean, what a run they had into the playoffs. And then, of course, Major League Baseball finished off with the World Series, of course, with the Dodgers winning it all for the first time since 1988. I mean, they had a couple of chances, of course, in 2017 and 2018, and couldn't get it done in both of those. But yeah, now they finally got it done, and Yeah, the NFL season then got started with the, like you said, the Chiefs and the Texans with limited fans. Some teams did have limited fans, while others had no fans at all. And I mean, some games did eventually get postponed or pushed back because of some teams being affected by COVID. But it looks like, unless something dramatic really happens, it looks like they're going to finish the season on time and head right into the playoffs. And now, of course, oh yeah, and forget, of course, for the first time in a long time, there was no NCAA tournament, men's or women's. And of course, now, of course, we got the college basketball season back up and going. Um, Now, of course, and of course, the NBA season just got going again back on December 22nd. Of course, the Lakers got their rings, and then of course, we had that big trip. I mean, that big day of games on Christmas Day yesterday, and of course, now we just found out the NHL season is going to start on January 13th, a 56 game season, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because you got all the different realigned divisions. Of course, my Boston Bruins are in the East Division, but here's the thing, guys: the teams that are in those separate divisions, they're going to be playing the teams that are in that division 8 times. So it's gonna. I think it's a way of course, you still have the protocols in place, and then of course it also helps limit the travel. So can't wait to see that get going again. And and unless something really crazy happens, it looks like we could have Major League Baseball starting on time. Right now, their opening day is going to be on, ironically, guys, April Fool's Day, April 1st. And that's where all the teams are going to be starting on the same day. So it's been a wild and crazy year in sports, and hopefully at some point in 2021 we will get fans back in the stadium. I think that would be in Major League Baseball, but we gotta wait and see how this whole vaccination process goes with the vaccines that's being distributed right now. So there is some hope, guys. I mean, there is some hope, but it's a long road, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully by the summertime we do start getting some fans in Major League Baseball stadiums again, because that's what helps drives a team. I mean, with having fans in in their stadiums or ballparks. So there is some hope, guys, but it's a long road. But I think we're going to get there eventually. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say on it. So, Anthony, it's yours.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I think we've covered everything there was to cover for this. So before we sign off, I want to bring MF back in because we're going to be having another special show tomorrow night. We're going to be having our Wrestling Forum Year in Review special tomorrow night. I'm sure it'll be at the same time as always. MF, how are we going to be doing the Wrestling Forum Year in Review show? How's that going to go down? He must be. I think I got a feeling what's going on here, but I wanted to get a quick. Okay, MF, how are we going to be doing the Wrestling Forum show tomorrow night?
Well, when we're doing the Wrestling Forum, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to recap some of the major events that was in either WWE, Impact, whatever. However, just like the Slammies, we're also going to give our own version of the awards. You know, we're going to give Superstar of the Year, Female Wrestler of the Year, Pay-Per-View of the Year, and there's going to be some others. Tag Team of the Year, breakthrough star who we think is going to be the big name in 2021. And we're going to do that at 10:30 Eastern. I will host it on my channel, Braves Fan 95. We're going to treat it like if this was a Sunday night pay-per-view. So be here tomorrow night. Nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
All right. Thank you very much, MF. We were just, I was just curious about how we were going to do that because I had no idea. But then again, I didn't know what we were going to do with this, but I'm glad I reached out to you. So you heard it tomorrow night, 10:30. MF will have it. Braves Fan 95. The three of us, maybe Didi Woodson will be with us as well, and we'll review all of our favorite moments in the world of professional wrestling in 2020, and of course, we'll do our awards as well. There's one other award that I think I forgot to mention, Match of the Year. You have to believe that'll be included as well. So all the awards, Male Superstar of the Year, Female Superstar of the Year, and it doesn't have to necessarily be WWE. It can be any promotion. Let's keep that in mind. So that goes for all the awards, Male Superstar of the Year, Female Superstar of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, Breakout Star, Match of the Year, everything. It doesn't have to necessarily be WWE or anything like that. It can be any promotion that you feel is worthy of it. So that's all there is to say on it. So that'll be tomorrow night. Monday night, we will have a very special edition of Ridiculously Raw. Not only are we going to review Monday Night Raw, but gentlemen, after conversing with MF, SmackDown last night was the best TV of this year, hands down. And I think that that it deserves to be reviewed, and there's no way we can let that go unreviewed. So MF will host the SmackDown portion of it because it's going to be a joint production of the Cerebral Smack Talk and Ridiculously Raw. We'll review the SmackDown, and then we'll review the Monday Night Raw. And we're going to be doing that for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be doing that not only on Monday night, but we're also going to be doing it the following Monday as well. Because, as you know, we did not do the Cerebral Smack Talk last night because of Christmas, and we're not going to be doing it on Friday night, this upcoming Friday night either, because of the New Year's Day holiday. So we're going to be doing that for the next 2 weeks. No Tony's Take on either of those shows, by the way. That'll come back on January 11th. So we'll get into that on Monday. Tuesday night, we will have another edition of Strictly Sports, college football edition, as we will preview the New Year's Six, the 2 college football playoff games, and the other 4 games that make up the New Year's Six. So we'll get into all that on Tuesday night. And then Wednesday night, of course, that's the big show right there, Wednesday Night Mayhem. We will start the show by paying our respects to Mr. Brody Lee, Jonathan Huber, Luke Harper, who passed away earlier this evening. We were notified by Derek Ferreira. He informed us of all of that. So we'll get into all that. We will pay our respects and share our favorite moments of him. And we'll also review AEW Dynamite, which you have to believe, but you can imagine, guys, it's going to be a very emotional show. Probably the most emotional show since that first show they did with after COVID, when Cody, cut that speech from the heart. You remember when they made the move to Daly's place back in March. So probably the most emotional show since then, if not more emotional. So we'll do that, and we'll also get into NXT as well on Wednesday night. No show Thursday, no show Friday because of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, respectively. And then we'll be back next Saturday night with the regular season finale of Strictly Sports NFL Saturday, as we will preview all the games for Week 17. And every game is a divisional game, so let's not forget that. So we'll get the meaningless games out of the way first, and then we'll preview the games, and then we'll do the games with the playoff implications and all that after. So there's that. So that'll be next Saturday, and then we'll take it back to normal from there. So with all that being said, that'll do it for this. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in to this very special edition of Strictly Sports, this 2020 Year in Review special. And we thank you all so very much for tuning in to all shows that were related to Strictly Sports, whether it was this or NFL Saturday, college football Thursday, what have you. We want to thank you all so very much for your continued support. And we if not for you guys, there wouldn't be this. There wouldn't. So So with all this being said, we got a big moment here. Let's see. All right, Miami. How about that, MF? There you go. A 44-yard field goal. The Dolphins have just taken the lead on the Raiders with a second left. Oh, boy. So big moment, MF. So I know MF's probably celebrating and probably bouncing around like Tigger right about now. So we'll save that for behind the scenes. But until tomorrow night for our Wrestling Forum Year in Review special, this is Anthony Florio signing off for my elite panel, good old MF Michael Fletcher, on behalf of good old MF Michael Fletcher, for him and for Michael Bullock, and of course our other panel, you know, the first lady of the Wrestling Forum, the Twisted Angel, Dee Dee Woodson, and of course always and forever, especially tonight, Derek Ferreira, FKG 401. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up Fortune 4 style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. And until tomorrow, and have a blessed Sunday. And until tomorrow night for our Wrestling Forum Year in Review special over on MX channel, Racefan 95. You've been watching the 2020 Strictly Sports Year in Review special right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who's been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long. Bye, everybody. Bye.